The study we will be looking at is titled Longitudinal Changes in Resting State fMRI from age 5 to 6 years Co-Vary with Language Development. Researchers have been using fMRI in recent years to examine language development and its underlying brain mechanisms in both adults and children. Consistent activation has been reported in the left posterior superior temporal gyrus and sulcus and in the left inferior frontal cortex. These are found to be crucial for language development. Both structures are involved in different aspects of language. The inferior frontal cortex is involved in processing syntactically complex sentence structures, and the superior temporal gyrus and sulcus is involved in the processing of syntactic information. The superior temporal cortex is generally required for language acquisition during the second year of life, and bilateral activation is thought to play a role in narrative comprehension in childhood through adolescence. The IFC and the STG/STS show functional connectivity during sentence comprehension. However, this connectivity is not adult-like until around 7 years of age, due to the fact that children at this age still have problems processing complex sentences. A previous study also showed that children with better language processing skills had increased activation in the left IFC than children with worse language processing skills. Studies exploring functional connectivity and the underlying structures of language development have mostly been done in adults, resulting in a gap in literature examining such functional connectivity in children. The aim of this study is to define the changes in neural connectivity and their relation to language development. This study presents an exploratory examination of developmental changes in intrinsic connectivity patterns of children from age 5 to 6 by using a network measure. Objectives include detecting how these functional connections change with age and to what extent the functional resting state network is related to language abilities. The researchers hypothesize that there will be a growing involvement of core regions of the language network with age, in particular the posterior STG/STS and the IFC. The participants of the study consisted of 53 preschool children at the age of 5, with a mean age of 5.5 and a range between 5 and 6. All participants were monolingual German speakers, right-handed, and had no psychological disorders. Longitudinal fMRI data was collected first at the age of 5 and then obtained again at a 1-year follow-up. A 3T scanner was used with a 12-channel head coil, and to obtain resting state functional connectivity data, a screensaver with a lava lamp pictured on it was used for the participants to look at. Resting state functional connectivity information obtained from fMRI was combined with behavioral data on the development of sentence comprehension using a German standardized test. In terms of pre-processing, a Gaussian kernel was used to achieve spatial smoothing. The data was then subjected to degree centrality analysis, which is used to identify hubs in the human brain. Using a network measure such as this in examining connectivity patterns allows researchers to have an unbiased comparison at the voxel-wise level. As stated by the researchers, the primary analysis of this study examined intrinsic connectivity differences in the longitudinal data identifying clusters that change the degree centrality with development. Paired t-test was performed to detect the developmental changes in voxel-wise connectivity maps from age 5 to age 6 years old, which also controlled for head motion.
The key findings for this study, first and foremost, include that the mean accuracy for the comprehension task performed was significantly higher for children at the age of 6 than at the age of 5. Specifically, mean accuracy for the children at 5 years old was 67.7% and was 78.8% at 6 years old when assessed in a resting state. This showed a significant difference between the two time points. It is also important to note that some of the same parts of the region of the brain were activated in children at both time points. This included the posterior cingulate cortex, the lateral temporal cortex, the lateral parietal cortex, as well as the prefrontal cortex, which were already known activated regions in adult data on language comprehension. Although the same overall region was activated at both ages, there was a much stronger connectivity around the area at age 6 than at age 5. The presented figure visually portrays the findings of the study. We can see the average functional connectivity in the left posterior superior temporal cortex, which is a previously known region to be associated with language comprehension in adults. We see this here in children at 5 and 6 years old. Figure A in the top left shows the average functional connectivity in the brain of 5-year-olds, where we can see the activated posterior STC. In Figure B in the top right, this displays the average functional connectivity in the brain of children at 6 years old, when they are 1 year older. Here in Figure B, we can see stronger activation and connectivity in the area than what was shown at 5 years old to the left. And Figure C at the bottom shows a direct comparison of the two time points, where we can see on the left, highlighting the inferior frontal cortex, significantly stronger connections at age 6, as shown by the yellow and red colors. This image portrays the results as analyzed by advancement in language abilities, comparing children with more advanced language abilities, which tend to be concurrent with those at age 6, to children with less advanced language abilities, which tend to be concurrent with those at age 5. In Figure A, we can see that the correlations observed in the resting state showed connections from the left posterior STC to known language-activated region, the inferior frontal cortex, specifically in children with more advanced language comprehension. In comparison, in Figure B, we can see that children with worse language comprehension showed stronger connections to the posterior cingulate cortex, which is part of the default mode network also associated with language, rather than connected to the inferior frontal cortex. There were a number of correlations with surrounding regions at both ages. However, at age 6, with advanced language comprehension, the IFC was additionally involved. This functional connectivity in the IFC presents maturation in language comprehension rather than the connectivity in the DMN, or more specifically the PSYC, associated with less mature language comprehension. The results from the study can be related back to the hypothesis identified in the introduction, as the hypothesis was that there would be increased involvement of the language network with age, specifically the posterior STC and IFC. Findings showed the same core region of the left posterior STZ to be involved at both ages, with growing involvement from age 5 to 6. However, not as directly related to the original hypothesis was the finding of how the connections between the IFC and left posterior STC were only present for children with more advanced language abilities, and how those with less advanced language abilities did not show these connections. Rather, they showed connections to the DMN, which was not considered as a possible outcome in the introduction of the study. These findings demonstrate the development of functional resting state networks over 1 year between ages 5 and 6 and its concurrent development of language abilities, whereas typically 5-year-olds would have less advanced abilities and stronger connectivity to the DMN, and 6-year-olds would have more advanced abilities and stronger connectivity to the IFC. The results extracted from the study are extremely important in the research area since they provide new data on the crucial differences between these specific ages in language development, which had not been previously looked at to this extent. They fit within the larger literature since much of the past research supported the same brain regions as being crucial, yet they further expanded on this, on how the connectivity in such areas changes across specific time points and in terms of the advancement in language abilities. And overall, these findings show the very significant changes that take place over a 1-year period between ages 5 and 6 specifically in terms of the development of their language abilities. One of the main limitations is that the results in this study were reported based specifically on cognitive activation from a resting state. Therefore, it cannot be further generalized that this development of language abilities and region activation will always occur. And resting state data relies on correlation between networks. However, correlation cannot infer causation, so this probably should have been taken into account. Another limitation in terms of the methods is the short acquisition time of the data, as it may be considered quite short for the type of analysis conducted. The resting state fMRI data was collected in a very short time period, since it is difficult to collect such sensitive data from young developing children. However, a longer acquisition time could have been beneficial. Another limitation of this study was the use of spatial smoothing, which certainly would have reduced the spatial resolution. Based on the findings in this study, future research could certainly expand by incorporating a task-based condition to compare to the resting state condition. Furthermore, a next step could be to look at children in other age ranges rather than just from age 5 to 6. Older age ranges, such as those from 6 to 7 or even 7 to 8, could be examined to see if there are similar significant differences from one age to the next. The longitudinal effects of such language comprehension could also be assessed over a longer time frame, such as over the span of 2 or 3 years rather than just 1 year long, to see if there's still a significant difference over these time periods.